that big wood. Isn't that crazy? Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. The archway into the garden has started to lean pretty intensely again. I'm gonna guess it's because our loofah gourds are growing much larger, but I don't know if there's going to be a way to really salvage this arch trellis. It's been leaning like this for so long. I feel like it's probably kind of stuck this way, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. And that reminds me about something that I wanted to mention to you guys today. So I got a comment this past week and it said something like, please clean up your garden, it looks like a jungle. And I wanted to kind of answer that comment on video because the entire point of my channel is not to show you the perfect side of things. It is not to do all of this, you know, weeding and upkeep and things that just aren't naturally part of what I do, only to show you guys something pretty. I want to show you the reality of what it's like to have a homestead. I don't just have a garden. We've got a homestead here where lots of things happen. Actually, this past week we had 3 dairy goats give birth, and when that happens, it takes a lot out of me. I barely clean my house when I've got goats that are in labor because I put so much effort and brain power into my dairy goats at that time that sometimes certain things take priority, and when that happens, other things have to kind of take a back seat, and that's okay. That is absolutely part of this life, and I want to show you guys that. So I don't censor my garden. It is a jungle right now. A lot of October gardens are a jungle. And truth be told, my garden at least is a lot easier to clean up after our first frost. At that point, a lot of the weeds and things have died back. A lot of like the vining things like this trellis and like our tomatoes on the trellis behind you, they will be a lot easier to remove off of the trellis once they are brittle. And at that point, I literally just pull them off of the trellis and put them down into the bed below. And I know that, so until our first frost, I just kind of let things hang out. I'm really not in a rush. I don't need to use that space, and so I don't sweat it. But also, October Heather has a lot less energy and want and desire to deal with the garden in this state. I know that March Heather, come the springtime next year, she's got a lot more energy and drive and excitement to clean things out. So a lot of times stuff just kind of sits until I have the energy for it. And that's absolutely okay. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see it, but you can hear machinery behind me. It's because they are harvesting the cornfield across the street from us. It's actually really cool to see. Speaking of frost though, we did get a very light frost last weekend. I know I had talked about worrying that it was gonna show up, and our temperatures actually showed that we were supposed to be a low of 43, but sometime overnight that quickly dropped and we did see a very light frost. I got a couple pictures of the frost on the grass, but thankfully it didn't really affect our garden pretty much at all. There's a couple different things that look like they've been kissed by frost, but nothing, you know, outright died, which was good. See, this okra leaf has a little bit of damage here, but the entire plant is still alive. I had some peppers kind of experience the same thing, but nothing really got enough frost on it to die. Tomatoes are still hanging on, doing their thing. And of course, we have a lot of things in the garden that are frost tolerant, like our pak choi here, our lettuces, and our radishes, which really need to come out of the garden today. So I need to go get a bigger harvest basket than I brought. All right, so here's our radishes. I probably planted these around 6 weeks ago. I forget exactly, but radishes aren't exactly one of those foods that you can just kind of leave in the ground and harvest whenever you'd like. I do that with our peppers. I mean, to a point. To a point, the peppers would go bad on the vine as well. But radishes, with time, they will start to get a little bit woody. They'll be a lot less tender. And before these radishes get to that point, I'm gonna harvest them. Now, when I planted this space, what I did was just scatter seeds all around. And part of what I scattered was not only radish seeds, but I scattered some other brassica seeds like broccolis and things throughout here. And I'm gonna try not to pick those. I have a feeling that once I take this radish out, the intensity of the sun is going to kind of fry those plants, but we'll just have to see. It's an experiment. That big one. All right, so this radish is going to give me a great example of why sometimes you will plant radishes and get teeny tiny little roots and lots of leaves. Now, a lot of people will tell you that's because you have an imbalance of nutrients. That is not necessarily the case. A lot of time this is a result of there being too much heat. So root vegetables, what the root actually is energy storage for the plant. And so if it's been a pretty warm fall like it has been here, the plant doesn't really receive the message that it needs to start saving its energy for winter. We only just recently started getting cooler nights and cooler mornings, and so this plant had already started to try to flower, which is what root vegetables will do in the heat. You can see this little bud here, this would have been flowers, which would have turned into seed pods and seeds for the plant. And really that's the goal of this plant. The plant received a signal from Mother Nature via the heat that it had enough time to produce seed, and that's the whole point of the plant. All it wants to do is produce more of itself and spread its seed, and the bulb, the part that we actually grow things like radishes for, that's not really necessary for the plant. If it doesn't feel the need to put that on, it won't. And so this is what probably about half of these look like, but we do have quite a few nice big roots here, like this one. Isn't that beautiful? So I am still going to yank these out because once they've really started to try to put on that flower, they don't reverse course and put on a root. So I'm just going to yank these because I don't need these going to seed right now. And it seems like the variety of radish that is putting on roots a lot more readily in the heat is the English breakfast radish. It's one of my favorites for a reason. Really mild flavored radish, and it works well in the heat. To a point. We haven't exactly been seeing 90 degrees, but we've been seeing temps in the 80s during the day quite frequently in the last 6 weeks, and we've got lots of roots. Go, beautiful tote of lots of radishes and lots of radish greens. So you can eat the radish greens as well. You can eat them raw. You can stir fry them. I find them to be a little bit more palatable when they're cooked because they do have little tiny hairs, and the camera might not be able to pick it up, but there's little tiny hairs on the leaves that are a little bit unappetizing, to be honest. But you can, what I'll probably do is just feed these to the chickens. The chickens are gonna love them. And you can store root red vegetables in the refrigerator for a pretty long time. What I'm planning to do with these is actually chop them up kind of like potatoes, and put some either taco seasoning or ranch seasoning on them and roast them and have them with dinner this week. My kids really enjoy eating them raw, and I do as well, so I'm sure we'll do some of that as well. And this is what I've left in here. Some of it is probably radishes, some of it is probably other types of brassica plants. I'm just gonna leave these to see what they do. Radishes is one of those crops that you can succession plant different crops of radishes every couple of weeks, and then you'll have more of kind of a drawn out harvest. We have had our first harvest of baby greens out of our lettuce bed over here. It's doing really well. This lettuce is really delicious, and it's gonna get even more delicious as our temps get cooler and cooler. All these cool weather plants like the lettuce and our pak choi and things, they survive cool temps because of their sugar content that is inside of their leaves. And as the temps get cooler and cooler, the sugar content increases inside the leaves, and that's what helps protect it from freezing. And so the more cooler temps that they're exposed to to a point. I mean, they will absolutely die if it gets cold enough, but the exposure to more cool weather and more frost increases those sugars, which helps them taste a little bit better. Right here in front of me, these are actually basil plants. Basil is very, very frost tender, and I did get a little bit of damage during that really slight frost that we got the other day, but the plants they're doing okay, and as long as the frosts hold out, I should get a couple rounds of pesto. I did notice that I do have some kale growing in here, so this one is red Russian kale, and this one looks like dinosaur kale. There's another red Russian right there. But over here, here's our basil, and it's starting to really put on some leaves. There's not a whole lot of time left in our season to really worry about this, but one of the things with basil that you can do to increase your yield with your plants is when you go to make your first harvest, pinch off the top like this. What that's going to do is cause the plant to branch out. It's going to put even more side shoots on, and you ultimately get more basil that way. Also, when you do grow basil into the heat of the summer, this helps it kind of slow down its flowering process as well. Looks like some of my pak choi is trying to flower, which is all right. A lot of times when a plant like this starts to flower, the leaves get a little bit bitter. This plant actually isn't bitter, so it's a good idea to harvest this pretty soon and cook it up. Or if I wanted or needed more seed, I could just let it do its thing. That would work too. So I've got this science experiment little birdhouse gourd here. It's actually kind of a big one that got really moldy, but I have heard and seen that this can be normal. So it's kept its integrity. It's not rotting, even though it really looks like it. I noticed that it got remarkably light, and then I went ahead and gave it a shake. Hoping it's gonna come up on camera. Can you hear that? So this gourd appears to be drying out as it should, which is really cool. This is our first time doing something like this. From what I understand, once it's dried out fully, it still needs a little bit longer. What we'll do is cut our hole for the birds and then just dump the seeds out, and it's all good. A lot of people will preserve them, I believe, with mineral oil. There may be other types of lacquers and things that can get put on the outside to help keep its integrity. Maybe the inside could be cured or preserved with something as well. Maybe like beeswax or something. But yeah, the progress of that was pretty cool, and I wanted to show you. Look at this. There's a lot of something else down here too. At some point in the year, I did clean out something out of the garden, and I just kind of stuck it here in the driveway. And we've got all of these seeds for, I don't know what it looks like. Maybe it's some kind of squash. It's really funny that it all volunteered like that. It's not gonna live past a frost, so cool anyway. My big tall okra plants have officially fallen over. That's okay, I'll be cutting those out of here really soon. Look at this volunteer tomato. This thing is absolutely wild. So I did notice that we had some evidence of some tomato hornworms on here. This was a couple weeks ago when I first noticed this, and I did hand pick a couple of them off, and that seemed to do the trick. There must not have been very many because the damage is actually quite minimal, and the plant has really bounced back quite nicely. Lots of new flowers, so I guess we'll see how long this guy lives. This is that volunteer that loves to live on my farm. It's a yellow currant tomato. The carrots and then the rutabaga that are in our new raised bed here are looking awesome. There's still quite a few weeds in here, but the carrots are getting big enough to where the weeds that are in here really aren't affecting them that much at all. I still need to come through here and mulch. Maybe by the garden tour next week I will have done that, but they're doing well despite not having any mulch. Our fall and winter garden, it's looking okay. It's growing little by little. One thing that I really have to do that I think is gonna help all of the plants that are in here is I really need to take off the shade cloth. So I've gotta go get my drill. Taking the shade cloth off is a lot easier than putting it on. It's a lot brighter in here now, which is good. The plants this time of year really need as much sunlight as they can get. There's not only fewer hours in the day because of the time of year, but the sunlight itself is less intense. And so allowing the plants to have as much of it as possible is a really good thing this time of year. I have a dedicated plastic bin that this shade cloth goes in. Unfortunately, I saw throughout the course of the year that there has been a wasp nest that has been created inside of that, so I'm not going to mess with that today. I'm going to request Levi's help when he gets home to rid my bin of the wasp nest. But for now, I am going to shove this where I have shoved it in years past, and that is in our storm shelter. My biggest concern with storing the shade cloth is storing it in a way where rodents can't get in there and just ruin it by chewing holes in it to make their nests. Rodents are a thing a lot of the year, but especially this time of year where they are harvesting the fields across the street. Our farm is about to get inundated, and for right now, that's the best place for the shade cloth. Come here. We've definitely reached that time of year where even the chickens are sick and tired of scraps. We did just bring our pigs to the butcher. It's a lot harder to make pigs bored of garden produce, but it does happen. Last year we had so many rotten tomatoes that we fed the pigs that they eventually just turned their nose up to it. They were like, no more, please. We haven't stepped foot out on the lane in probably over a month. This was the garden space that was new to us this year. It was very valuable. We grew a lot of food out here. Clearly I have left quite a few things out here. I intended to feed these cucumbers to the pigs, but those are going to be chicken food if they want it. But an amazing thing that I noticed is that these plants have gotten a second wind despite me turning off the irrigation to this area and everything. Look at this. Brand new birdhouse gourds out here. Quite a lot of them. This one has a brown stem. I should probably at least set that on the ground so it doesn't smash down. Gosh, I guess it's on here pretty good. There we go. This here I think is more birdhouse gourd, but next door, this is a melon. See? Look. This is armpit melon. I cannot believe that we have the resurrection of these melons. Look at here. Isn't that crazy? And then we've got some tromboncino squash. These may get to their mature state before we get a real hard frost. See, there's one over here that's actually a good color. There's one down here that's a good color. And then this here is the spaghetti squash. Look! There's this one here, and then if you follow this along, there's another one in here. Isn't that insane? This is really crazy to see, but there's also something really hopeful about it. I have completely and utterly neglected this space, and there's still food growing out here. You're a good boy. This one has gotten ravaged by something. So we'll offer that to the chickens, but it's still really cool. A lot of things at the end of the season get kind of gross pretty fast. That is absolutely okay, because even if it doesn't feed us, it can feed our animals. These are also the kinds of things that turn into next year's volunteers, which is bonus food as well. It's a really cool cycle. Okay, chickens, watch out. Let's try this one. Oh, sorry, didn't break. There you go. How about that? There we go. There you go, girls. That's easier.